Dr. Jia Kim stood at the airlock, breathing slowly to calm herself. In just moments, she would meet beings from another world. After years of study and preparation, she was Earth's chosen representative for first contact with the Talons. The station hummed around her. 6 other humans waited behind her, scientists and diplomats from various nations. None spoke. What could anyone say at such a moment? The airlock indicator changed from red to green. The soft hiss filled the air as pressure equalized. "Remember," Captain Han whispered, "they've studied our language but might not understand our customs." The inner door slid open. A sweet smell like cinnamon and ozone drifted into the corridor. Jia's heart pounded as 3 figures emerged from the mist. The Talons were taller than humans, with slender bodies that seemed almost fragile. Their skin shimmered with patterns of light that shifted beneath the surface. Each had 4 eyes. 2 large ones where humans had eyes, and 2 smaller ones set wider apart. They had no visible nose, only slight indentations, and their mouths were small and round. "Welcome to Earth Station 1, Jia said carefully. "I am Dr. Jia Kim, xenobiologist and representative of Earth." The tallest Talon stepped forward. The patterns on her skin, for Jia had been told this one was female, pulsed with blue light. "I am Neri of the Talon Collective," she said. Her voice had an unusual quality, as if several people spoke in perfect harmony. "We bring greetings from the 16 worlds of our civilization." Formal introductions continued as each human met each Talon. Jia noticed how the aliens seemed fascinated by human hands, staring at them with all 4 eyes whenever a human gestured while speaking. Later, in the station's conference room, both groups shared basic information about their worlds. The Talons described their home planet, a warm world with vast oceans and small continents. They showed images of gleaming cities built from materials that changed color with the time of day. "Your species intrigues us," Neri said suddenly, interrupting the climate discussion. "Your physical form is quite different from ours." Jia nodded. "Yes, we evolved under different conditions. May I ask a personal question?" Nari's skin pulsed with purple light. "Of course. Your species has many duplicate parts. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears." Nari's voice held genuine wonder. "Is this common for life on your planet?" Jia smiled. "Yes, many Earth creatures have bilateral symmetry, paired features on both sides. It's a common evolutionary path on our world." "Fascinating." Neri turned to her companions, and they exchanged rapid clicks and whistles in their native language. "On our world, efficiency led to singular development. 1 primary limb, 1 sensory organ of each type." Jia looked closer and realized what she had missed. What she had taken for 2 arms was actually 1 main arm and a smaller supporting appendage. The Talons had 1 primary eye on each side, with the smaller eye serving a different function. "Would it be permitted to discuss biology in more detail?" Nari asked. "We find your species' redundant systems quite remarkable." Captain Han looked concerned, but Jia nodded eagerly. "I would be honored. That's my field of study." The rest of the day passed in scientific exchange. The humans learned that Talons had evolved from ocean-dwelling ancestors who developed highly specialized single organs. The Talons were amazed by human resilience, how humans could lose 1 kidney but survive with the other, or how human lungs contained millions of tiny air sacs. "Your redundancy allows for remarkable survival," Nari said as they examined medical diagrams. "If a Talon suffers damage to a primary organ, death often follows. You humans have backups." That evening, Jia sat in her quarters recording notes when her door chimed. "Enter," she called. Nari glided into the room. Without the other diplomats present, she seemed more relaxed. The patterns on her skin shifted to soft gold colors. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," she said. "Not at all." Jia gestured to a chair. "Would you like to sit?" "Thank you." Nari folded her slender body onto the chair. "I wanted to speak with you privately about something that has been puzzling me." Please, ask anything. Neri's skin darkened briefly. Our research team studied your broadcasts before coming here. We noticed humans have many different appearances, varying colors, sizes, features, yet you're all the same species. Gia nodded. Yes, humans have great diversity, but we're all Homo sapiens. Our differences are mainly adaptations to different environments on Earth. This diversity, doesn't it cause conflict? Gia paused. Sometimes, sadly, we've had wars and discrimination based on those differences. Yet you're here together, different types working as one. Neri's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Among my people, even small variations are rare. Diversity has advantages, Gia explained. Different perspectives, different strengths. It's helped us solve problems and create amazing things. Neri leaned forward. Like your biological redundancy, perhaps your social diversity provides resilience. That's a fascinating comparison, Gia said, surprised by the alien's insight. They talked for hours. Neri explained how Talon society valued uniformity and specialization. Each Talon had one specific role from birth. The concept of changing careers or learning multiple skills was foreign to them. As the night grew late, Neri rose to leave. At the door, she turned back. Dr. Kim, I was selected for this mission because I showed unusual curiosity about other life forms. My people considered this a flaw, but useful for this task. Her skin pulsed with bright patterns. Now I wonder if perhaps we have much to learn from your redundant, diverse species. Gia smiled. And we from yours. That's why this contact matters. After Neri left, Gia stayed awake long into the night. First contact had gone better than anyone hoped. What had begun as formal diplomacy had become genuine cultural exchange. And it had started with simple curiosity about human biology, something Gia had studied all her life, but never seen through alien eyes. Tomorrow they would continue learning about each other. 2 very different species, finding common ground among the stars. The science lab aboard Earth Station, one hummed with activity as Gia arranged the holographic displays. 1 week had passed since the Talon's arrival, and what began as formal meetings had evolved into genuine scientific collaboration. Is the temperature comfortable for you? Gia asked as Neri entered the lab. She had learned that Talons preferred warmer environments than humans. Yes, thank you, Neri replied. The patterns on her skin shifted to bright blue. A sign of excitement, Gia had learned. I've been looking forward to today's exchange. Gia smiled. Me too. I've prepared the cardiovascular comparison you requested. With a wave of her hand, Gia activated the main display. A 3-dimensional human heart appeared, beating in a steady rhythm. This is an average human heart, Gia explained. It has 4 chambers and pumps blood throughout our entire body. Neri moved closer, all 4 eyes fixed on the display. Remarkable. And it maintains this rhythm without conscious control. Exactly. It beats about 70 times per minute when we're resting, faster during exercise or stress. Neri's skin flashed with patterns. Now show me what happens if it's damaged. Gia adjusted the display. If one part is damaged, the heart continues working, though less efficiently. Humans can survive significant cardiac trauma if treated quickly. And now compare to our Talon cardiac system. Gia nodded and split the display. Beside the human heart appeared the Talon equivalent, a single elongated chamber with specialized tissue that pulsed in waves rather than beats. Your heart is more efficient in normal conditions, Gia noted. It uses less energy and pumps blood with greater precision. But it has no redundancy, Neri finished. Even minor damage can be fatal for us. The Talon moved to another display showing human lungs. And these organs also demonstrate your species' redundant design. Yes, 2 separate lungs, each with millions of tiny air sacs called alveoli. If one lung fails, we can survive with the other. Dr. Kim, if your people could adapt Talon biology to include some of your redundant systems, Would you consider that ethical? The question caught Jia off guard. That would depend on many factors. Why do you ask? Just scientific curiosity, Neri said, but her skin patterns flickered rapidly. Tomorrow, could we discuss genetic engineering techniques used on Earth? After Neri left, Jia sat alone in the lab, troubled by the conversation. What had begun as mutual scientific exchange was revealing deeper currents. The Talon's interest in human biology seemed to go beyond academic curiosity. Jia made a note to discuss this with Captain Han. The scientific exchange was valuable, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the Talons might want more than knowledge from humanity. Much more. Jia stood in Commander Park's office, her hands clasped behind her back. The commander read the message from the Talon High Council for the third time, his expression growing darker with each review. They want what? He asked, looking up at Jia. Tissue samples, Jia repeated, from at least 20 human volunteers. They're particularly interested in reproductive cells, bone marrow, and neural tissue. Park set the tablet down and rubbed his temples. 3 weeks ago, these aliens didn't even know we existed. Now they want parts of us. They claim it's for comparative research, Jia explained. Neri says their scientists are fascinated by our biological redundancy. I'm sure they are, Park said dryly. But this goes well beyond the information exchange we agreed to. Taking human tissue samples wasn't part of the first contact protocol. The station's diplomatic officer, Lee, who had been silent until now, spoke up. The Council's message implies that refusing would be seen as an unfriendly act. Is that a threat? Park asked. Lee shrugged. Hard to tell. Their diplomatic language is still new to us. Park turned to the window, looking out at the Talon ship docked alongside the station. It was beautiful, a spiral structure that glowed with internal light. Dr. Kim, you've spent the most time with them. What's your assessment? Jia considered carefully before answering. Neri seems genuinely interested in scientific exchange. But lately her questions have been more focused on human regenerative abilities and genetic structure. And sometimes she says things that make me think the Talon leadership has goals beyond simple research. Such as, yesterday, she asked about human genetic engineering techniques, whether we could adapt Talon biology to be more like ours. Park turned back from the window. They want our redundant systems. Their biology is efficient but fragile, with no backups. One injury that we might recover from could kill them. That's my concern, Jia agreed. What begins as tissue samples could lead to more invasive requests. Park made his decision. Send a polite refusal. Say we need more time to consider their request and to establish proper medical protocols. That evening, Jia worked late in the lab, updating the station's database with new information about Talon's cellular structure. The door slid open, and she looked up expecting to see one of her colleagues. Instead, Neri entered. The Talon's skin was dimmed to almost gray, the color of concern or fear, Jia had learned. Dr. Kim, Neri said softly, are we alone? Jia nodded, suddenly alert. Yes. What's wrong? Nari glided closer, speaking barely above a whisper. Your commander rejected our request for tissue samples. We need time, To. There is no time, Nari interrupted. I must warn you. The situation is more complicated than you know. Jia felt a chill. What do you mean? Nari's 4 eyes darted to the door before she continued. The Talon Collective is not the only advanced civilization in our region of space. There is another species, the Vosh. They are aggressive, territorial. For centuries, we have maintained an uneasy peace with them. What does this have to do with us? The Vosh monitors all Talon deep space missions. They know we have contacted Earth. Their scout ships have been observing from the edge of your solar system. Jia felt the blood drain from her face. There are other aliens watching us right now. Nari's skin pulsed with confirmation. The Vosh see new species as either potential servants or potential threats. When they learn of human biological advantages, your redundancy, your adaptability, They will consider you threats. And the tissue samples. What's the real reason your leaders want them? Neri's patterns shifted to complex swirls, a sign of internal conflict Jia had noticed before. My people are dying, Neri said finally. Our extreme biological specialization worked well for thousands of years, but a genetic disorder has appeared in the last 3 generations. Our reproductive specialists are failing. Without intervention, the Talon population will collapse within a century. And you think human DNA might help? Our scientists believe your reproductive redundancy could be adapted to save our species. Neri's skin brightened slightly. Not to become like you, but to restore what we have lost. Jia leaned against the lab bench, processing this information. Why didn't your leaders simply explain this? We might have helped willingly. Our council does not admit weakness, Neri said, especially not with the Vosh watching. And, she hesitated, some Talon factions want more than just a cure. They see human biology as an opportunity to advance our species, to take your redundancy and add it to our efficiency. Through genetic engineering, using our DNA. Yes, but these factions do not speak for all Talons. Many of us, myself included, believe we should seek permission and collaboration, not samples taken under diplomatic pressure. Jia's mind raced. I need to tell Commander Park about this. About the Vosh watching us. You must be careful, Neri warned. If my leaders learn I've told you this, I will face severe consequences, but I could not remain silent. Not after what I've learned about humans, your diversity, your openness. My people once valued these things too, before fear of the Vosh changed us. The station's alarm suddenly blared, making both of them jump. Red emergency lights began flashing in the corridor. Attention all personnel. Park's voice came over the speakers. We have detected 3 unidentified vessels entering the Earth-Moon system at high speed. All staff report to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Neri's skin went completely white. They're here, she whispered. The Vosh have decided. Decided what? Jia asked, already moving toward the door. Whether to eliminate humanity as a threat or to subjugate you. Neri followed quickly. Either way, they will attack first and communicate later. It is their way. As they hurried through the corridors, crew members rushed past them toward their stations. Jia had to make a quick decision, take Neri to the commander or follow emergency protocols. Come with me, she said finally. Park needs to hear what you know about these Vosh. I cannot be seen helping humans against them, Neri said, her voice tight with fear. The Talon Council would consider it treason. People might die if you don't, Jia countered. Neri stopped, her internal conflict visible in the chaotic patterns racing across her skin. Finally, the pattern settled into a steady blue glow. You are right, she said. My people have hidden in fear of the Vosh for too long. Perhaps it is time for a new approach, one involving truth and cooperation, not secrets and manipulation. As they rushed toward the command center, Jia realized that first contact had just become far more complex than anyone had imagined. What began as scientific curiosity had evolved into a 3-species diplomatic crisis, with Earth caught in the middle. And somehow, human biology, with all its redundant, inefficient, marvelously adaptable systems, was at the center of it all. The command center buzzed with tense activity as Jia and Neri entered. Commander Park stood at the central console, his face illuminated by the glow of tactical displays. 3 ships, unknown design, the sensor officer reported. They're moving fast, sir. ETA to station range is 6 minutes. Park looked up, surprised to see the Talon with Jia. Dr. Kim, you should be at your emergency station. Sir, you need to hear this, Jia said quickly. Neri has critical information about these ships. All eyes turned to the alien. Neri's skin flickered with nervous patterns, but she stepped forward. They are Vosh warships, she said. As species from our region of space, They monitor all Talon expeditions and consider new spacefaring races as potential threats. Threats? Park's eyes narrowed. We've done nothing to provoke them. Your existence is provocation enough, Nari explained. The Vosh fear competition. When they learned of human biological advantages through our transmissions, they likely decided to eliminate the threat before you can expand beyond your system. A loud alarm cut through the room. Energy buildup detected. They're charging weapons. Shields up, Park ordered. Contact Earth Command immediately. Ja, get our guest to safety. Nari's 4 eyes widened. There is no safety. Vosh weapons can penetrate Talon defenses easily. Your shields will not. The station shuddered violently. Lights flickered and warning alerts blared from multiple consoles. Direct hit on the outer ring. Someone shouted. Sections 12 through 15 are depressurizing. Seal all bulkheads, Park commanded. Begin evacuation of affected areas. Another impact rocked the station. This time, the main lights failed completely, leaving only red emergency lighting. Communications are down. The communications officer reported. We can't reach Earth. Park turned to Nari. Can you contact your ship? We need help. The Talon's skin had gone almost white with fear. My ship has likely retreated to protect the diplomatic team. It is not designed for combat. A third blast hit, stronger than the previous 2. Jut was thrown against a wall. When she recovered, smoke filled the command center. Several officers lay unconscious at their stations. Commander, she called through the haze. There was no answer. She spotted Park on the floor near the main console, a gash across his forehead. Nari appeared beside her. Your station cannot withstand much more. The Vosh will disable your life support next, then board to check for survivors. Jia knelt beside the commander and checked his pulse. He's alive, but we need to get him to medical. Help me. Together, they lifted Park, but as they reached the door, the whole section shook again. The ceiling collapsed between them and the exit, blocking their escape. We're trapped. Jia coughed as dust filled the air. Nari's skin pulsed with racing patterns. There is another way. The maintenance tunnels. Your engineers showed them to me during the station tour. Jia looked around wildly. The access panel should be near the environmental controls. They found the panel hidden behind a storage unit. Jia pulled it open to reveal a narrow tunnel. This connects to the main hub, she explained. From there, we can reach medical. I will go first, Nari offered. Her slender body easily slipped into the tunnel. Jia maneuvered Park's unconscious form into the opening, then followed. The tunnel was tight and dark, lit only by occasional emergency lights. They crawled slowly, dragging the commander between them. Why would these Vosh attack without any communication? Jia asked as they moved. It is their way, Nari replied. They believe strength comes from decisive action, not words. After what seemed like hours, they reached a junction. Suddenly, the station rocked again, and the tunnel behind them collapsed. We can't go back, Jia said, checking the commander's pulse again. It was weaker now. We need to hurry. They took the left path, which Jia believed led toward the medical bay. The air grew thinner as they progressed. Life support is failing, Nari observed. Her breathing had become labored. My species requires more oxygen than yours. Jia noticed the Talon skin losing its luminescence. Can you make it? I must, Nari said simply. They reached another junction where the tunnel widened enough to rest. Jia checked Park's wound, which had stopped bleeding but looked serious. Why didn't your people warn us about the Vosh? She asked Nari. The Talon's skin darkened with shame. Our council believed they could complete the mission before the Vosh noticed. They were wrong. She paused. I should have told you sooner. I am sorry. A dull boom echoed through the station, followed by the sound of tearing metal. They've breached the hull, Jia whispered. They're boarding. We must keep moving, Nari urged. They continued through the tunnel network, Gia guiding them based on her knowledge of the station layout. They emerged into a corridor near the medical bay, but found it blocked by a sealed emergency bulkhead. The medical bay is on the other side, Gia said, examining the door controls. Power's out. We can't open it electronically. Neri moved closer to study the mechanism. There is a manual override, yes. Yes, but it requires significant physical strength. Without hesitation, Neri positioned herself at the manual wheel. My species has focused our evolution on efficiency, not redundancy. But in our upper bodies, we developed specialized muscle groups for precise movements. She gripped the wheel and began to turn it. The effort clearly pained her. Her skin flickered with stress patterns. But the wheel slowly moved. After several minutes, the bulkhead raised enough for them to slip under. The medical bay was dark, but emergency generators kept basic equipment running. Dr. Sun and 2 nurses were treating injured crew members. Commander Park needs immediate attention, Gia called as they entered. Sun hurried over to help move Park to a treatment bed. What happened out there? Before Gia could answer, the station's remaining lights flickered and died. Even the emergency systems went dark. Total power failure, Sun said grimly. Life support will fail completely within an hour. In the darkness, Neri's skin began to glow brighter, providing enough light to see by. The effort seemed to cost her. Her breathing became more labored. The Vosh shut down your central power, she explained. They will methodically search the station, capturing or eliminating all life forms. There must be something we can do, Gia insisted. Neri's glow intensified. Perhaps there is. My species communicates through skin patterns. We can transmit complex data through light variations. How does that help us? If I can reach the main communications array, I might be able to send a distress signal directly from my body. A signal the Vosh would not detect as technology. Sun looked skeptical. The array is in Section 8. That's where they breached the hull. I will try, Neri said. It is our only chance. Gia shook her head. You'll never make it alone. I'm coming with you. The oxygen levels are too low for me, but sufficient for humans, Neri observed. Your biological redundancy, your 2 lungs, allows you to function where I struggle. Then we'll work together, Gia said firmly. Your knowledge and my endurance. As they prepared to leave, Gia grabbed an emergency oxygen kit and 2 pressure suits from the medical storage. For what it's worth, Sun said as they headed out. I think this confirms we're not alone in the universe. Despite the dire circumstances, Gia managed a small smile. No, Doctor, we're definitely not alone. And right now, that's both our biggest problem and our only hope. Gia and Neri stood in the observation lounge, watching Earth rotate slowly below them. 2 weeks had passed since the Vosh attack. The station still showed signs of damage, but repairs progressed steadily. Hard to believe so much has changed in just 1 month, Gia said quietly. Neri's skin rippled with agreement, the patterns flowing in gentle waves of blue and gold. When I first arrived, I never imagined this outcome. Their desperate mission to the communications array had succeeded against all odds. Neri's ability to transmit data through her bioluminescent skin had allowed her to send a distress signal that the Talon ships detected. The reinforcements arrived just as the Vosh boarding parties reached the medical bay. The door slid open, and Commander Park entered. His head still bore a bandage, but he moved with purpose. The Talon High Council representatives are ready, he informed them, and Earth's Secretary General is online. Gia took a deep breath. Then let's not keep them waiting. They followed Park to the newly repaired conference room. 3 senior Talons waited inside, their skin patterns formal and controlled. On the large screen, the Secretary General of Earth sat at her desk, flanked by military and scientific advisors. We are gathered to formalize the agreement between Earth and the Talon Collective, began the lead Talon diplomat, Co. Recent events have proven that cooperation serves both our peoples better than secrecy. The Secretary General nodded. We agree. The Vosh threat remains, but together we stand a better chance than either of us would alone. Ko turned to Nari. Science emissary Nari, please present the medical exchange proposal. Nari stepped forward, her skin glowing with purpose. The joint research team has identified compatible aspects of human and Talon biology. With Earth's permission, we will begin limited genetic therapy to address our species' reproductive crisis. In exchange, we offer our advanced propulsion and energy technology. Not as conquerors or subjects, Jia added, but as equal partners in research. The Secretary General smiled. Dr. Kim's suggestion of mutual exchange, rather than one-sided sampling, has proven the wiser path. Your scientists get what they need to save your species, and humanity gains the stars. Ko's skin flickered with what Jia now recognized as reluctant acknowledgement. The council was mistaken in its approach. Nari's actions, while initially seen as rebellious, ultimately saved both our peoples. The formal treaty signing took only minutes, but its significance would last generations. Earth would help the Talons overcome their genetic crisis, and in return, humans would gain faster-than-light travel technology and protection against the Vosh. Later, Jia and Neri walked through the station's garden dome, which had somehow survived the attack undamaged. Plant life from both worlds grew side by side in careful arrangements. Your roses are beautiful, Neri observed, examining a red bloom. On our world, flowers do not produce such vibrant colors. Another difference between our worlds, Jia said. Earth life evolved to attract attention, while yours evolved for efficiency. Nari's skin displayed thoughtful patterns. I have been appointed permanent ambassador to Earth. The Council believes my unusual perspective will be valuable. Unusual how? I see value in differences, Nari explained. Before meeting humans, most Talons viewed biological redundancy as wasteful. Now we understand it as another form of strength. Jia smiled. And humans are learning that efficiency has its place too. They stopped at a viewport overlooking the docking bay. The first joint Talon-human vessel sat ready for its test flight. Its design combined Talon elegance with human practicality. Backup systems integrated into a streamlined form. The ship is beautiful, Jia said. Yes, Nari agreed. Like the crew, it combines the best of both our species. Do you think the Vosh will return? Nari's patterns darkened briefly. Eventually. But they will find us better prepared. The Talon Council has already reached out to other peaceful species in our sector. A larger alliance is forming. All because they attacked us, Jia mused. The Vosh never considered that their aggression might unite those they sought to conquer. Nari's skin brightened. In trying to eliminate what they feared, they created something more powerful than either of us alone. A young engineer approached them, carrying a tablet. Dr. Kim, the biological containment system is ready for your inspection. Thank you, Jia said. I'll be right there. As the engineer left, she turned back to Nari. Duty calls. Before you go, Nari said, there is something I wish to share. Her skin displayed a complex pattern Jia had never seen before. This is the Talon symbol for new beginning. It has not been used in generations. It's beautiful. The Council has adopted it as the official emblem of our alliance. Nari's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of respect. They also recognize that without your human ability to adapt quickly to crisis, neither of our species would have survived the Vosh attack. Jia smiled. And without your willingness to question your leaders and warn us, we would have been caught completely unprepared. Perhaps that is the lesson in all this, Nari suggested. Biological redundancy gave your species physical resilience, while our specialization gave us efficiency. But true strength comes from combining different approaches, from diversity, not uniformity. The station's announcement system chimed softly. Attention all personnel. The maiden voyage of the Earth Talon vessel Horizon will commence in 30 minutes. Viewing is available in all observation lounges. I should go, Jia said. The containment systems need final checks. Of course, Nari's patterns shifted to formal farewell colors. Until tomorrow, Dr. Kim. As Jia walked away, she reflected on how quickly everything had changed. 1 month ago, humans believed they were alone in the universe. Now they stood on the threshold of interstellar travel, part of a growing alliance of worlds. All because two different species, one built on redundancy, one on specialization, discovered that their differences were not obstacles but opportunities. Their distinct evolutionary paths, once separated by light years, now converged to create something neither could have achieved alone. The Horizon would launch today, carrying the first joint crew into deep space. But the true journey had already begun, not just between the stars, but between fundamentally different ways of being alive in the universe. And it had all started with curiosity about the differences in their biology, a reminder that understanding begins with asking questions, even about the most basic aspects of how we exist.